Hi, everyone. We have a very, very fun conversation with you today. I have a friend I'm going to bring on now. Hi,
Hi,
how are you, Doc?
I'm good. Dr. Funke, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you, Dr. Nishi. Good to see you. How was clinic?
Good. I'm in the middle of clinic, so I just finished with patient, and then I've got another one
Oh,
after this.
oh, we're going to make this conversation as efficient and as impactful as possible. And what better time, right, to educate us on just some of the things that you feel would be kind of low hanging fruit when it comes to, evaluating patients with sleep issues. And so just by way of introduction, hi everyone, I'm Dr. Funke Afolabi Brown. I'm the founder of Restful Sleep MD. I have Dr. Bopo here. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Dr. Bopo?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Funke. So I'm Dr. Nishi Gopal. I'm a physician specializing in integrative psychiatry and sleep medicine. And I have a private practice in California. It's called Pacific Integrative Psychiatry. So we see patients by telemedicine all across the state. And then I also have an online platform called intra-balance, where I teach health professionals, so physicians and therapists, all about sleep medicine.
I love it. And I have learned so much from you, when we think about the fact that as sleep experts, as sleep physicians, they're just a handful of us nationwide, worldwide, right? Yet, for example, in the US, we have 8 billion people. There's just not enough of us to go around, don't you think?
Absolutely. No, it's funny. We were talking about this the other day
Mm-hmm.
in our group of women sleep physicians. We all support each other and we have a great community. And yeah, there's so few of us in the world. And I think, it's almost imperative we have a responsibility to share this knowledge with the rest of the healthcare community and the rest of the world, because everyone has to sleep. And so, there's all this information that people don't have access to. So I feel, great privilege to be on here today to talk about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I really wanted us to talk about this for two reasons. One was an experience that I had recently. And interestingly, I created a live. I don't know. Oh, sorry. I created a reel. I'm not sure if I posted it. I need to find it and, and post it. And the other was to also talk about this, your sleep toolkit, which I think is just such a phenomenal resource. And so the experience I had, um, was I went to I'm sorry, I went to a for my regular checkup, right? I get that in from time to time. I try to get it in every year, but sometimes it's like 18 months, whatever. And you get there, and I just really went in. I could tell the my PCP was already overwhelmed. He had so many patients in clinic. He's gonna be going over a year's worth of, what's happening with your health, what's, things like that. And I went in with curiosity. I'm like, I wonder if he's gonna ask about sleep, right? And of course, guess what? No, not at all. Not at all. They asked about, am I safe? They asked about anxiety. They asked if I was feeling stressed. They asked about my diet. They asked about my, exercise, but nothing came up about sleep. And that was not surprising at all. And so I just had to step back and I thought, you know, if they don't know to ask, and I'm not faulting him. He's a brilliant physician, but he's busy and it's not something that really comes to mind that readily, especially when you're in a busy practice, unless a patient knows to bring it up. But sometimes they don't even know what they don't know as patients. So I wanted to find out, do you get that from even people that refer patients to you, or when patients show up in your practice, do you notice that same like lack of knowledge? And if so, why do you think that is?
Yeah, I absolutely noticed that. And I'm glad you brought that up because, it's funny when I go to see my primary care physician or, OBGYN or whoever, they don't ask about sleep. And I get it. They're busy, they've got patients back to back. But I think one of the reasons, oh, and what's funny is like they'll ask me about sleep. Wait, I'm like, wait a minute, this is my appointment. About their sleep. But But I think one of the reasons for that is
Mm,
as physicians, we get so little training
yep.
in sleep. medicine, right? So the average physician gets about 2 hours of sleep medicine education in medical school. So it's the fault of the physicians. It's just not built into our medical education. And even in residency, even though I'm a psychiatrist, I started my residency in internal medicine. And I remember we got a little bit of education on sleep apnea, a little bit about hypoventilation, and that was about it. And there wasn't really very robust information out there or training on sleep. So I think that's one of the reasons. And then we're discussing people are just very, very busy.
Yeah.
So that's creating the sleep kit to make it easy for clinicians to learn about sleep, to get a bank of resources that they can use in their clinic. I'll be doing monthly live coaching calls. We can talk about things like that because there is such a gap in our sleep education training.
Yeah, no, and you've said it so well. So think about this, right? 8 billion people. I'm not sure how many sleep physicians there are, but when I checked, when I had my training, I was like number 200 and something. Granted, it was like a pediatric sleep certificate, so that was a little different, but it doesn't make any sense. And then we have the people that should be helping us sort of be that access to getting our patients the care they need are not asking the question. So we have a huge gap, a huge discrepancy. And, it really, the onus is on us as physicians to really work collaboratively to provide the resources, the education, and also the awareness in whatever capacity we can to bridge that gap. And so I think this is just incredible that you're creating this sleep toolkit. And I definitely want you to tell us what it is, because people that I serve, people that I work with are, of course, physicians, they're professionals, they're moms. So this information may end up coming to you as a mom who's not necessarily in the medical field, but maybe you could say, hey, doc, when you go to your PCP, I need you to watch this live and sign up for this sleep toolkit because you'll be helping me. So really our aim is to get this word out there as much as possible. So tell me, just what do you think in an ideal world? Let's say a physician, for instance, or a doctor was seeing their patient and they had 5 minutes and they said, you know what, I want to intentionally carve out 5 minutes or 2 minutes, let's say 2 minutes, to ask about sleep for my patient. What are some questions that you think would be like, okay, the best bang for your buck that would help the doctor know, okay, you know what, you got a sleep issue. I may not be sure what it is, but let's delve into it. So what do you think those would be?
Yeah, great. So I would recommend is you don't have time, if you only have 2 minutes or 5 minutes with your patient, you can send them a screener ahead of time. Maybe patients will fill it out, maybe not. Or if they come to your office, you can just give them like a one pager with these questions on it. You get a lot of information that way too, if you're very pressed for time. But if you do have time during an appointment, there's 5 main questions that I like to ask. And so the first one is to ask the patient about their bedroom, right? So this one patients are often surprised about because they'll say, hey, no one ever asked me about that before. And you can actually get a lot of information that way. So for example, I had a patient who came to me and she'd been struggling with sleep for over a decade. She'd seen lots of different doctors, put on Ambien, different sleep aids, and so forth. And one of the questions I ask is, well, tell me about your bedroom. Like, where do you sleep? What's that environment like? And it turned out she was sleeping in an unventilated closet in her studio apartment. It was the only room that was enclosed. And she literally could not breathe. It was dark, dusty, it was unventilated, it was depressing. No wonder she couldn't sleep, right? And so we got a lot of info from that and we made some changes and it had a big impact. Recently, about a few weeks ago, I see my patients on Zoom. I do telemedicine. So sometimes I'll ask my patients, hey, can you show me your bedroom? Let's just take a look. Let's see what it looks like. And they're like, oh, cool. Yeah. So they turned their phone around and then showed me. And again, lots of great information like, wow, that's really uncomfortable, the setup that you have there. And he was like, yeah, the bed's pushed up against the wall and I can't stretch out. My shoulder hurts. Like, well, let's see if we can do some changing here, right?
So you're slowly becoming an interior decorator. Well,
just I love of interior design with
I know.
Yeah, so that's a really simple question. And again, if you don't have time, just have it on your screener form and you can get a lot of good info.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. I love this already. So that's the first one about the bedroom environment. And you're so right. Like we don't ask about that. And I love the benefit that we've had with, with the COVID pandemic. The blessing has been the fact that through telemedicine, we're really getting access to see what's environment, what home environment is like, what's it like to walk in their shoes. And I think leveraging that and using that to get a better sense of what their sleep is like is really incredible.
Absolutely, absolutely, because it
Mm,
has such an impact on our
hmm.
experience, on our ability to breathe,
Yeah,
um, our comfort levels, and so forth. Um,
absolutely.
Question that I like to ask patients is, what do you do in the evening, right? And so again, you can get a lot of really interesting answers from this question. So some of these answers might be surprising for you to
Mm,
hear. And I like the term that you used, low-hanging fruit,
mm,
at the beginning of our conversation, because this is really low-hanging fruit to see, okay, what are they doing in the evening that might be impacting their anxiety levels, their stress, or their sleep. So for example, another patient of mine I saw a few months ago, I asked him, well, so tell me about your evenings. What do you do? Well, he drinks 6 glasses of wine every. He didn't think it was a problem, right?
mm,
Because a lot of people don't understand the impact that alcohol has on sleep. To him, it helped him unwind. It helped him fall asleep, but he couldn't stay asleep, and
mm,
he just didn't make the connection. He didn't know, and so that opened up a conversation about the impact of alcohol on sleep, and seeing where we can make some changes. Patients might not tell you that stuff unless
mm,
you ask, right? So
mm.
that's one. Another patient, told me that they're watching true crime series on Netflix and then having nightmares and having, trauma type nightmares and
Mm,
stress. So again, and to her, it was like, well, this is kind of what I do at night. This
mm,
is how I relax. I like to watch them at the end of the day, and not really making that connection, that is having an impact on her nervous system and
mm,
sleep, right? Just asking
mm,
them, hey, how do you spend your evenings? And again, you can have this on your screener, if you don't have time to go into it in detail, or you can say, okay, let's schedule a follow-up appointment to talk a little bit more about that.
yeah.
And just bring this to a patient's awareness. It also gets their buy-in to
Mm.
start.
I love both of that. And I think that is so true. I had a teenager that smoked to relax. And so nicotine in your system prior to sleep is going to disrupt your sleep. So I think unless we ask, they wouldn't know to offer that. They wouldn't know to say, hey, doc, I drink 6 glasses of alcohol. Could that be affecting my sleep? But unless we're really poised or positioned to ask those questions, we're not going to get enough to be able to know how to intervene. And so it's a very simple question, but it can potentially really shed light into why they're having sleep difficulties. So that's really, really good. What's the next one? I'm writing all this stuff down.
And I'll just add one thing to that quickly, which is
Mm,
that sometimes if we ask them directly, do
mm,
you drink alcohol at night? A patient might say no
mm.
because they feel
Yeah.
embarrassed to say so, a little bit of guilt about it. But
Mm,
if you ask them this in an open way, like, how do you spend your evening? What do you do? Right?
mm,
They're be more open to having that dialogue and then sharing some of these details
mhm.
that they might not otherwise.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
so
love that.
yeah,
Thanks for bringing that up. Yes, that is so true.
yeah.
Non-threatening. Do you scroll on social media right before bed? Like they may want to, their guard may come up and you then lose them. So I really like that sort of open-ended question. That's great.
Exactly, exactly. And just, letting them lead the dialogue sometimes it can be
Mm,
helpful. It builds rapport and it builds trust.
mhm,
So, okay, number three. The third question is, what is your sleep schedule on weekdays and what's your sleep schedule on weekends? And if they don't have a Monday through Friday schedule, you can ask them, what's your sleep schedule like on work days and days off, or school days and holidays, or whatever there is relevant to them.
mm,
And you may find that there's some clues that there's a circadian rhythm misalignment, especially if people are saying, well, I get up at 6 a.m. on a weekday for
mm,
work, sleep until noon on a weekend. So that could be a clue as to what's going on with their circadian rhythm. There may be some elements of social jet lag happening,
mhm.
which is jet lag that happens when you're not traveling, so you get the same kind of symptoms
Without the beautiful experience of travel.
without even going.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one that I like to ask, and I actually have that in my screening intake
Mm,
form. So all of my patients get that question: what's your your weekday sleep schedule, weekend sleep schedule, and they actually have to put the times in as well. And so you can get a lot of information just from that question.
I love it. Let's keep going. I'm really loving this, and I hope this is helpful for you guys, because this is very valuable information that can really clue you in into your own sleep health as well as your patients.
Great. Okay, so moving on to number 4. So number 4 is I like to ask about their family history of sleep issues. If there's a family history of sleep apnea or other sleep disorders like narcolepsy or restless leg, and you don't necessarily have to ask all of those questions pointedly at first, because like I said, I do like to start with an open-ended question, because sometimes people don't know what these things are, right? They don't know what narcolepsy means exactly, or sleep apnea. So I'll ask them, do you have a family history of any sleep disorders? And this can be really helpful because we often see sleep disorders showing up in a subclinical way. In my practice as a psychiatrist, I'll see women coming in with diagnoses of treatment-resistant depression or chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia, when there's actually some, undiagnosed or untreated sleep apnea underpinning their symptoms, or maybe there's even narcolepsy that hasn't been detected. It takes people an hour 17 years to get a diagnosis.
Yeah.
Right. So again, opening up this dialogue about a family history, because this not only serves you as the clinician to get that family history data, but it also helps serve the patient, because they're often not thinking that there might be some underlying sleep disorder that can be treated. They just know, I don't feel good. I'm tired. I'm not sleeping. And often they'll, if I ask, and I find this in my practice, I'm curious to hear if other people have this experience too. If I ask directly about sleep apnea symptoms, often I'll get, no, I don't have that. My husband has that and he has a CPAP, and yeah, I don't have that. But it shows up differently in different people, right? So just getting them to think about it in a different way can be helpful.
And that is so true, especially for women. You may not necessarily have the loud snoring and the gasping and the pauses, which is why it ends up going undetected for so long. And so if we're not looking for it, we're more likely going to miss it. That's such a good point.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, okay. And then, should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right. So then the question that I like to ask is, what is the next step that you would like to take to improve your sleep? And again, I like to do this in such a way that it creates a partnership with the patient, right? So we're not telling them, okay, you need to cut out your 6 glasses of wine that you're drinking every night. You need to stop smoking that pack of cigarettes every day. That it becomes this, paternalistic kind of thing, and then it creates resistance with the patient. So really creating a partnership with them and asking them, well, where do you want to start? What's the smallest next step you want to take? Let's experiment with this. Let's try this. Let's make this one change and see how it goes. And we can adjust as we go along. It takes a little bit more time, as we were talking. If you don't have a lot of time in clinic, then it's a bit more of a challenge. Maybe you ask them to come back for more frequent follow-ups. But creating that partnership can be really helpful in driving motivation and giving the patient a sense of agency.
And I really like that. And that next step for both of you, for the patient, for you as the clinician, could be to say, okay, I think we need to get you to see a sleep specialist. But guess what? That's a conversation that would never, ever, ever have happened if you hadn't asked, right? 5 questions. It may seem like it takes a lot of time, but it's, especially if you have a screener ahead of time, it may literally change the health trajectory of your patient. And so I think these are just so valuable, so practical. And even with all this, you've not made a diagnosis. And what we're saying is you might not necessarily be able to make a diagnosis, right? Of course, you want to make sure you optimize the sleep environment. There's some practical things, but this at least gets them headed in the right direction. And, that direction may be seeing Dr. Bhopal in her practice or coming to see me, but at least we're getting those conversations going, especially with how frequently or how many patients have been undiagnosed with sleep disorders worldwide, right? So I really think this is going to make a huge difference. And then I think what I think really pairs so nicely with this conversation is that sleep toolkit that you've created for clinicians. I think this is just, again, such an excellent resource. I'm already a part of the founding members, and I'm a sleep physician. Yet I know that it's going to bring so much value to the way I practice my practice sleep medicine. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about this, about it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Yeah, no, I've been thinking about this sleep kit for many years. It's actually the type of resource that I wish that I had when I came out of my residency and
Mm,
fellowship training, to implement some of the stuff that I had learned. Right. So it's the first version of this program. So it's open for founding members. Doors are closing tomorrow. I'm so delighted that Dr. Funke is one of our founding members in the program. And so what it is essentially a toolkit that you can use in your clinical practice. So it has these screening forms. So like all these questions that we just went through, it has the intake forms that you can use in your practice. It's got handouts for your patients. It's got treatment protocols. It's got a differential diagnosis template and protocol so that you have a roadmap to help your patients with sleep. So I'm also going to be walking people through my 5-step process that I use with my patients in clinic and that I train my staff on in my clinic to help them with, sleep medicine, because there's so few of us that I can't just go find a sleep medicine doctor to join my practice. Right? There's so few of us. So I have to train my staff, the other practitioners in my practice to be able to do this. And so I'm making this available to the general healthcare community. There's going to be live coaching calls once a month. We'll be discussing cases. I'll be sharing insights like this. We can have conversations. Dr. Funke and our other guest experts are providing trainings as well. And I'm designing this in a way that's really easy to digest because we're all so busy. We don't need more information overload. This is
mm.
about implementation and learning in a slow, gentle way, but in such a way that you can also get big wins and make some big steps with your patients in your practice.
I love every part of it. So who would you say it is for specifically?
So it's primarily for outpatient doctors, so primary
Hmm.
care psychiatrists,
Hmm.
psychotherapists, also sleep medicine physicians. Because even as sleep medicine physicians, we get our training during fellowship, but that's not everything we need to know. We pick up a few things along the way, right? Once we
Yeah.
start practicing. So this is also for sleep physicians who need a bank of resources that they can use in their sleep medicine clinic and want to learn from other sleep experts as well, but mostly for outpatient doctors, PCPs, psychiatrists, and therapists.
It's excellent, and I love the fact that you highlighted that sleep physicians can also benefit from it because you know information is constantly emerging, and I know that you are digging deep into the literature to see what's going on, what's changed, what's the new approach, and I think this is definitely going to be an incredible resource to the community. And this conversation I feel has been so powerful. You're like right smack in the middle of your own clinic seeing patients, but you're stepping away to say, you know what, this is value to folks out there who can partner with us to get more patients diagnosed, to get more patients treated, and to provide access to sleep health to all, because that's what we want, right? And so I want to just say thank you for doing this. We're not going to hold you much longer, but maybe just tell us where we can find you, because your website has so many resources and you have other ways people can work with you. So you could tell us a bit about that, and then we'll say bye-bye.
Okay, great. Thank you again. So you can find me on YouTube at intra-balance. It's INTRA balance. And so I've got lots of videos. Dr. Funke's on there as well. So I talk to sleep experts about ways you can support your patients with sleep, and you can get CMEs for watching the videos. And I've got various videos on recognizing and treating different types of sleep disorders. So that's at intra-balance on YouTube. And then for my private practice, you can follow us on Instagram at Pacific Integrative Psych. The practice is called Pacific Integrative Psychiatry.
Awesome. So you guys heard it. I'm going to put everything in the notes so y'all can just follow along and learn and just be better informed to provide better care. And if you're not in the medical field, or if you're not taking care of patients, you could speak to your therapist and say, hey, I know this incredible doc who's doing such amazing work in making sleep health accessible to all. So please check her out. All right, everyone. Thank you again for joining. Until next time, sleep well, everyone.